During this Adobe Photoshop tutorial, you will learn how to use and navigate your toolbar menu, also known as the Tool Panel. So when you open up your PDF file, Photoshop Tool Panel, you'll see that the PDF file has a screenshot of your tool panel along with every single tool labeled. So you can use this to follow along as we go through each of the different tools. Now we're not going to get a chance to actually dive into every single tool, but we're definitely going to look at the more common tools during this tutorial. You actually scroll down through and go down to page 3 of your PDF document. You'll notice that you have in this page a graphic of that particular tool plus a description of what that tool actually is for. And you'll see the more common tools listed here, which are a lot of the ones that we're actually going to be using here today in this tutorial. All right, once you have that open and you've got that ready to go so you can follow along, we're going to jump back over onto our Photoshop document, which I've asked you to open as well. Let me scroll back up here so we can get to the toolbar there. Okay, so you were in charge of opening up the Photoshop Tool Panel JPEG file, and so once you have that open, you should see the same image I have here. Now your windows, your panels here on the side might be different than mine, and that's okay. If you want any specific panels, remember to simply go up to Window and select the panels that you want. But you definitely need your toolbar menu to be out here, so make sure that your toolbar is showcasing. If you don't see it here, go to Window and then go all the way down to Tools, and it'll pull up your tool panel right here. Couple of tips about the tool panel. First of all, you'll see these two little arrows right here at the top. If you click on these, it will expand your tool panel to be longer, where all of your icons are listed all in one column versus the two that I had before. This is a personal preference, so decide which one you would prefer and go ahead and set it to whichever way that you'd like to view that. Second thing I'm going to share with you is that whenever you hover over a tool in the tool panel, you'll notice that a little pop-up tip will pop out like this, and this one says Move Tool. So as you hover over any of the tools, you'll see this little pop-up that'll let you know what this tool is called, plus it'll also give you the shortcut key. So you'll see in parentheses the little shortcut key, and it's simply a letter that would allow you to get to this key a lot faster. So for example, if I'm on my Move tool, you see it says V, and I come over to my rectangle Marquee tool, if I want to get back over to my Move tool, I simply click on V on my keyboard and it pops right back over to that one. So that's what those little shortcut keys are for. Now if you notice that when you hover over your icons, if the pop-up tool doesn't show up, the trick is to come up to Photoshop, up at the top, and then go to Preferences, then go to Interface, and this pops up the preferences for Adobe Photoshop. You'll notice in the top section there is a checkbox that should be checked where it says Show Tool Tips. If you want to be able to see those tool tips, make sure that this is selected, because if it's not, you will not be able to see any labels when you hover over any of your tools. Mine's already selected, so I'm going to go ahead and cancel, but otherwise make sure that it's checked and then click on OK. Alright, now let's go ahead and begin to explore some of our tools. So we're going to start off with, on the left hand side, we have our Marquee tool. This is our rectangle Marquee tool. Okay, so notice at the very corner there is a black little triangle. We'll actually talk a little bit about that here in just a second, but I just wanted to point that out. So make note that some of these tools do have a black little triangle. Alright, so I'm going to select my Marquee tool, and once I've selected that, it's going to allow me to come to my image and be able to either create rectangles or squares, to be able to select maybe certain sections of my picture, or perhaps I might want to copy this section and then paste it somewhere else. And you'll notice that on my layers palette over here, it automatically pasted that one section that I had selected over onto another layer automatically. So you can use the rectangle tool to select items that you might want to select. You can also use it to select items you might want to delete. So instead of actually doing a copy, you could actually do a delete. So you can actually just delete this section here if you wanted to. You could even paint directly over it. So let's go ahead and hit the delete button. This is going to content fill. Let me just jump up here and clear. Okay, so I went to File and then Clear, and it filled it with the color that I have in the background, which is this color down here at the bottom. That means I've deleted that part of the image, and now what you're seeing is the background color that would be there. So any portion that I delete here would then just show me whatever colors in the background. Now let me come back to that little triangle. Whenever you see a triangle, you're going to click and hold, and it'll pull up other options for that particular tool. So for example, for the Marquee tool, I have a rectangle, an elliptical, a single row, and a single column Marquee tools. Meaning I can select other shapes to then be able to come to my image and then select different portions that I could then, copy and paste like I did earlier, or be able to, cut portions out the way that you saw me do, etc. So you have different shapes that you can pick from. That's what those pretty much are for. Okay, so remember again, anytime you see a triangle at the corner of a tool, simply click and hold, and it'll pop up all your additional tool options. Okay, let's move on to our next tool, our Move tool, which is here on the left-hand side. So whenever you select this, it will allow you to move your items in any direction and place them wherever it is that you'd like to place them. So you can actually get a hold of different sections and then be able to move them around. Now, depending on what layer you're on, it will determine what object you're actually moving. So over here on the right hand side, you see I'm actually selecting different layers of where I actually put these different items. That is your Move tool. I find myself constantly using the Move tool, so I do recommend becoming familiar with this tool. Next, we're going to take a look at our Lasso tool, which is this one right here. Now, you do have multiple lasso tools. You can notice here you've got 3 different options, and they behave slightly different, but I'm going to share with you pretty much what exactly this is for. So I'm going to zoom in here quite a bit to our picture here. Move my toolbar over here and take this. So I've got my Lasso tool already selected. I can use my Lasso tool to select a particular area that perhaps I want to create an effect on. And so I select this particular area here. And mind you, you would definitely do a better job than what I'm doing here in this demo. I'm just quickly selecting for the purpose of this demo without necessarily being really careful. But you can see that I've selected this area now, and you can see that because we've got these little marching ants around that section that I've just selected. And now you could actually do lots of things with this, like for example, maybe use the eraser and erase a certain section if you wanted to erase a certain section. Or maybe use, let me make sure I'm on the right layer here. Okay, let me zoom back in. So I could use my eraser and erase, maybe just this section, and I selected that. That way, it wouldn't affect anything outside of that particular section. So that's why I selected it. Or perhaps you're selecting it because you want to copy and paste just that section over to another section. That's what your this particular lasso will allow you to do. Like I said, there are other lasso tools which will do something different. For example, the magnetic lasso will actually let you, without having to be too careful, it will distinguish the difference in the 2 colors. So for example, this is a great file to use this particular lasso tool with, because it recognizes colors and it will create that line for me without me having to be as careful as I was being the first time. Notice how it created this line, and it did a really good job distinguishing between, you know, the pinks, the reds, and the yellows. So it created a much nicer, smoother line for me. So if you have an image that has contrasting colors in it, you can use that magnetic lasso to better select an item instead of having to be really careful with the regular lasso tool. Okay, next we're going to go over to the magic wand. I really like this. This particular tool allows you to select areas, and if you have an image that has very distinct colors, then it will very easily select areas. However, in this particular example, you know, I've got some pinks and reds, not enough contrast for my magic wand tool to select an entire area for me. You'll see what will happen. I'm simply going to click over a section. And let me zoom out. Let me get my main background image here. All right, let's zoom back in here. All right, I'm going to click on a section. Notice how it just randomly selected all these different parts. And it did that because it's looking for similar colors. There's too many variations of a red and a pink here that it's having a hard time selecting sections that wouldn't have other colors in it. So the magic wand doesn't quite work in this scenario. But if you had a different image, let's jump over to this one here, and let's see if we can find something different. I just jumped over into our other files. So you can see that there's definitely some distinction here in some of the greens maybe, but even then it's really tough. See, here we grabbed a lot of the reds. It's really tough to use the magic wand tool unless you have an image that has very clear, distinct colors in it, so that you can easier select an item without necessarily having to go back in and using your lasso tool to make corrections on what you've selected. So it all depends on the picture that you're using. All right, next we're going to use the crop tool, which is this one right here. This is your crop. If you have an image and you know you only want a portion of it, I'm going to jump over to our Photoshop overview picture here. So if I only wanted, let's say, to get a portion right in here really close to his face, and I didn't want anything else around it, then you saw that with the crop tool I was able to select that particular area. Now all I have to do is hit enter, and it crops it down to just that selection. That's what the crop tool will allow you to do, is select areas you want, but it has actually gotten rid of the rest of it, so be careful to only use the crop tool when you know for sure that that's the section that you want. By the way, to undo this and get your image back to its original format when you first opened it, look for your history panel. And if you don't have this already open, remember you can go up to Window and then go to History to be able to pull it out so that it pops up. Once you have it visible as a panel, all you have to do is click on the original image up at the top, and it will revert your photo or your image, whatever document you're working on it, it'll revert it back to its original state. Let's go ahead and do that to our others as well, so that we have a kind of a clean slate here. Okay, like I said earlier, we're not going to get a chance to go over every single one, but we are definitely looking at the ones that are more popular. Next, I want to share with you, you will be using the spot healing brush tools in another assignment, but I want to show you, share with you briefly what these different brushes do. The spot healing brush tools, let me pull those back up. So the spot healing brush tool and then healing brush tool. What these allow you to do, and let me go ahead and get our Photoshop overview picture, and let me zoom in to our image here. See how he has a little wrinkle there? Well, these spot healing brush tools are going to be the tools that are going to allow you to fix some of those types of wrinkles. And you're going to have to work on it, you're going to have to play with it, and you're going to learn how to do this in another tutorial. And here we're just kind of very quickly doing it. But this tool allows you to actually fix blemishes and wrinkles, and if there are any blemishes around the face, you can fix those. Any major issues that you might need to clean up, like from an old photograph. You can also use that tool. These are really great to clean up your photographs. So remember, it's all of the tools that you will find in this little section under the spot healing tools that you see here. Okay, I do want to make sure you're aware of these bottom options down here, your hand tool as well as your, it's the little zoom tool, which is like a magnifying glass. I'm going to show you really quick. First I'm going to get the hand tool. The hand tool allows me to be able to move and pan around without having to zoom out and zoom into a certain section. Instead, you can just pan around using that. The zoom tool allows you to zoom in, and if you wanted to zoom out, you can hold your control key or your command, depending on if you're on a PC or a Mac. On a PC, you can use the control. On a Mac, you're going to use command. You'll do a command minus or a command plus to zoom in and out, and that's your shortcut as opposed to using the actual tool that's located here, which is actually a really nice shortcut to use. You also have a text tool, a type tool. You see it right up here. You can actually just click on that and then click on your image and then begin to type whatever it is that you wanted to type. So if we wanted to add type over this particular image, then we could actually start typing. You know, like Mad Hatter. You know, we're going to type that, and you'll notice up at the top in your options bar that you now have type options like the font, the size, and the color, and so forth. So that's what that is for. You also have other tools here that can help you adjust your image quite easily directly on this photo. You have the burn tool, and then you have the blur tool. The burn tool allows you to actually come to your image, and let's make sure we're on our image here, and actually darken areas. So let's say it was a little too faded and you want to darken an area. You can use this, and you can see that's getting darker, and of course we wouldn't necessarily want it this dark, but now it looks like he has a black eye. But you can use that particular tool to easily darken a section, so you can go ahead and try that out. This drop down menu or this set of tools also has a dodge tool. Dodge tool is the opposite. It's to make it lighter, and you can see that I'm making that lighter again. So that it goes back to more of what it should look like there. So you have all of those different kinds of tools directly in that one there. You'll also notice that you have some brushes available here, and this is to definitely use these tools to draw with these brushes. You also have a clone stamp tool and the rubber stamp tool located in here so that you can clone sections. This is actually a pretty neat tool. For example, let's come over to our other picture here. If I wanted to clone this part of my flower here over onto this side, there's a couple of things you have to do. You have to hit the Alt key to select the area you're going to be cloning from, and then you simply come over to the side and you start to just move it. Move your mouse, and you can see that it's replicating exactly wherever it is that, and you can see the hash mark moving along. You see the hash mark and where my mouse is, so that it's actually copying that exact section there. So now you have, you know, two instead of just one. So that's how you use your clone stamp, which is a really pretty cool tool. Anyhow, so this were a few of the different tools that you find in your toolbar that you're going to be using as you begin to design more and more in Photoshop.